Urbanization of the East versus development of the West. In the late 1800s, people from Eastern and Southern Europe began the long and dangerous trek to America. By the 1880s, 5 million immigrants had journeyed the worn and beaten path to the country of freedom. They persistently followed their countrymen because of poor economic status, religious, political, and racial issues. The quiddities of America were the allure of freedom, job opportunities, and prospect of equality. Ellis Island was the port through which immigrants from across the Atlantic would pass. Arriving in America gave the immigrants the release from their persecutions. In some cases, the contract labor law of 1864 paid for their passage, helping them on their way. Due to an influx of immigration, the government was unable to keep up with the rapid changes in cities. As a result, political bosses appeared and took over. After arriving at Ellis Island, immigrants often became involved with these political bosses, such as William M. Tweed. "I don't care who does the electing, just so long as I do the nominating." This is the kind of attitude that they had. They would take the immigrants in as sort of a family, helping them get a job, find a spouse, and become integrated into the foreign society. They later returned the favor by putting these bosses into a position of political power and keeping them out of trouble from any corrupt dealings they may have. The immigrants fed the workforce as a source of cheap labor. This helped businesses and company owners by contributing to their profits. Companies were starting to use more and more machinery to improve mass production. Working with these machines was extremely dangerous, and the only people willing to work were the immigrants. During this time, several new inventions were conceived: the telephone, electric light bulb, cash register, typewriter, refrigerator car, electric dynamo, and the electric railway. While the East was contributing to urbanization, the West had only just begun to develop.
Villages along the canal boom into dynamic cities: Buffalo, Syracuse, and Rochester. Goods crash in price, up to 95%. A frontier that had to be self-sufficient can now buy anything they want.
We were solitary adventurers in a great land as fresh and new as a spring morning, and were free and full of the zest of dares. Charles Goodnight, for whom the Goodnight-loving trail is named. Whereas the East was growing from the immigrants from Europe, the West was gaining people from Eastern Asia, Mexico, and also from the other side of America. The three things that fueled the migration were the Reconstruction, the Homestead Act of 1862, and the mining opportunities. The government passed the Homestead Act in order to encourage Americans to spread out and move west. With this act, a farmer could claim up to 160 acres, and after living and maintaining the land for 5 years, the land would be his. Another encouragement to move west was the newly found precious metals in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Colorado. Farming evolved into a business instead of a lifestyle. The railroads and the transportation they provided helped transition the farms to a single cash crop. So instead of having multiple crops to feed their own families, farmers were able to use the railroads to sell their cash crops and buy their food and supplies from the eastern side of America. In the late 1800s, the development of the West was still in the early stages, but in the East, the methods and technologies used were more advanced than those in the West. More immigrants flooded to the East because of the seemingly limitless opportunities, but as these illusions of grandeur seemed to wear thin, the Americans began to migrate westward into the frontier.